Before we get started, we wanted to thank Matchstick Golf for being our first title sponsor. Matchstick is a custom designer of ball markers based in Portland, Oregon, that was born out of its founder getting sick and tired of trying to find cool ball markers that weren't huge, heavy poker chips that didn't cost $300 on eBay. Matchstick's markers include the one-eyed alligator from Happy Gilmore, a stack of cash that will have you putting for dough. Right now, Matchstick is offering 15% off your first order at matchstickgolf.com with the code MuniciPals. So head on over to matchstickgolf.com, enter MuniciPals at checkout, tell them Big C in Ashton sent you.
How hard did you push it? Till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
What's happening, MuniciPals? This is Big C and Ashton, and now regular guest. We're going to go by Big Dick Nick this time, according to producer Jack. So the fun story there, Nick, I think we're going to lead right into this shit. So producer Jack comes and visits me, goes through a fitting with me in Portland, visits over the weekend, gets back down to the Bay Area. Nick is visiting our boy Ashton, and they went out, and podcast this week is going to actually be about the premier course that they got to play, which is Poppy Hills. But on Sunday, they got a round in at Presidio with producer Jack. And if anybody knows producer Jack, he loves a nickname. Jack loves to have, I don't know, like rhyming sing-along songs, nicknames, all this shit. And started calling our boy Nick Big Dick Nick while they were out there. So you need to get a little insight on that, Nick, about the whole entertaining scene that was your round of Presidio with producer Jack.
Yeah, all I can say is Jack knows. Can't argue. Jack knows.
So I guess I can chime in to give, I believe how this evolved. I believe we're going to kind of unpack this. So number one at Poppy Hills, Nick hits, I'm going to say it's a good chip because he chipped in for birdie on one. Nick, you can jump in. Yeah, you seem to want to say something.
Well, I was going to say we didn't play with Jack at Presidio's.
No. But so I told Jack that story, and I told him that multiple times Nick hit it off the flag stick. So then that turned into flag stick Nick, and then Jack took flag stick Nick and turned it into Big Dick Nick, and then kept saying Big Dick Nick. Like Nick would hit a great drive, Big Dick Nick. Nick would hit a big poof ball, Big Dick Nick. Nick would chip it over the green, Big Dick Nick. It didn't matter. He seemed to elicit the same response, and every time Nick would go, "Oh, keep on saying it, Jack. Keep on saying it." That's my fake when Nick gets all like Southern and proper. That's my like preacher voice I use for Nick. Keep on saying it. You're not wrong, Jack. You're not wrong.
Wah!
So
Wah!
We are fully off the rails.
Fully off the rails.
We've been talking for over an hour before we press record, so we're fully off the rails at this point.
Gonna need to edit this podcast quite a bit.
I definitely just had to lead in with that. But this podcast is going to be about Nick's experience at my favorite golf course. I'm going to put it out there, top 5 in my, in my courses played in my life. Probably one of the courses I've played most. And I will drive multiple hours to play this course, and it's Poppy Hills. I get roasted for this all the time. My opinion, I don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. It's the best golf course in Monterey. You can say what you want. That's my thoughts. That's the course that I love to personally play, the course that I go back to Monterey over and over again to play. And I'm so excited to talk about it with Nick as a first-time person being able to visit the golf course, and then Ashton's second time getting out there. He had a solo round out there with a gentleman that did not speak any English, and he said it was the quietest possible round he could have had ever. So I'll let Ashton elaborate a little bit on that, but let's get into Poppy Hills. So rolling up to Poppy Hills, driving through the cypress trees of Monterey, being your first time in Monterey, what were your thoughts coming from the city down into the glorious Bay of Monterey?
Yeah, man, it's gorgeous. So I've spent some time on that part of the California coast. I've spent time in Santa Cruz. I've done I haven't done 17-mile drive, but I've kind of spent some time there. So I've camped in the Redwood Forest just outside of Monterey, very close. So I am kind of familiar with what the land looks like and what the flora especially, but some fauna look like as well. And even coming into that whole area of the country with that experience, I was still blown away by the beauty and just the striking collision of the ocean with the mountains and the forest and the beach. I mean, they all just, what do they say about Pebble Beach? It's like the greatest like meeting of land and sea like ever or whatever. Like that's, I get it. I get it. I kind of had always poo-pooed that as Jim Nantz just, talking about his hometown and just getting all like, hello, friends, like, welcome to the greatest meeting of land and sea and ever. But it's true, man. It's fucking gorgeous. We spent some time at Pebble Beach and got lunch and got to see some of the grounds and just the land as it drops into the ocean right off the mountains, right off the cliffs. Like, it's spectacular. I kept looking throughout the day as we're eating lunch and playing at the little short course, the hay. Just looking at the ocean, man. It's like no beach area, seaside village area I've ever been to. And I've mentioned this to Ashton. I've been to Italy several times. My family's Italian. We have family over there. Spent a lot of time over there. I've been to France at the beach. I mean, I've been places in the world. It's not like I'm a wide-eyed and bushy-tailed when it comes to traveling and experiencing new places, but that area in Monterey, Pebble Beach, that whole peninsula is as spectacular natural beauty as you can find anywhere in the world, anywhere that I've been, at least I can say. So spectacular setting for golf, and it just set us up for such a wonderful round.
I mean, that's extremely well said. Every time that I enter Monterey, it's like taking a breath of fresh air, where I feel like I'm completely away from big city living, and everybody's kind of in a slower pace in Monterey. Nobody's in a rush to get anywhere. There's not like that feeling of where you go into a coffee shop and the guy's just running in to grab his cup and getting the hell out. Like, everybody is friendly. Everybody loves to chat. And, it's just a very welcoming environment out in Monterey. And Poppy Hills being the premier public golf facility in Monterey, owned by the Northern California Golf Association, operated by the Northern California Golf Association, offering probably the best absolute rate you possibly could find in and around all of Northern California. I mean, if you're an NCGA member and you go out there and play, the rates are incredible. And the great thing is something that Nick got to experience is they allow the twilight rate that is offered to the NCGA members to any person of the public in the twilight realm. So you get to play for $80 in twilight. So if you go out there and play at, like you guys did, snag that first twilight round that they possibly have on the books that they switch the price down to, I mean, it's easily the most affordable, high-end facility for golf in all of Northern California. It's incredible. Did you guys get out there early enough to hit the grass range and putt and chip and do things like that?
We did. So we had I think it was a 1:30 tee time, which was the first twilight tee time, which we'll get to in a minute, but that was very fortunate to have the first twilight tee time. Would not have been able to finish if we had teed off 10 minutes later. But we actually got down to the Pebble Beach area like around 10:30, and so we were able to spend our time at Pebble Beach. We walked around, we got some lunch, we was able to see those grounds. We saw the hay, and then we got to Poppy probably 45, 50 minutes before our tee time. So we were able to get to the range and hit some balls and go check out the pro shop. I bought a really sweet Seamus golf head cover. But it's actually kind of funny you mention the grass range. It is a grass range, which is great. And obviously we want to promote that. That's such a big thing that golf courses can offer that makes a difference over the mats. But it was actually, they hadn't rotated the range in a while, and so it was a lot of dirt, unfortunately, where we were hitting from. So that was a minor drawback. Ashton was probably okay because he's a lefty and he can basically hit out of the grass that everybody else is standing on. So the left sides of the bays were much grassier than the right sides of the bays, I should say. But yeah, no, nice range, nice facilities. Like you said, it's as good as you're going to get in public golf, especially for that price point.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. Like you kind of there's one sign of a golf course that puts time, effort, and money into their facilities. One kind of like thing that you can see when you pull up to a good course. And if they have a Rolex clock right where you check in, there's a starter right below it that kind of checks you in. You kind of know you're in a special place and you're playing in a good golf course, because those aren't things that people buy to put in just any facility. And it's kind of, if you're a golfer, you kind of know. Like if you pull up to a facility and they've got a Rolex. So if anybody hasn't played Poppy or any course that has one of these, they're always green and they always have gold accent and they're always a white inner part of the clock. And it'll say Rolex, and then it'll usually say the course's name and where it's located on the actual face of the clock. And it's a large, 10-foot pedestal. Yep. Ashton's showing me right now. And usually it'll say when the course was established. It'll have little
1986.
Yeah.
Poppy Hill's up top, established 1986.
Yeah.
Chris, do you know the history of this? We should almost do a pod. How did this happen? How did this come to be? Are these bought? How does this happen?
Yeah, so Poppy Hills, the actual property, it was part of National Land Trust. It basically was given to the NCGA. They were able to build a premier course that they could hold their Northern California Golf Association tournament at every year. And so they built this golf course, 1986. It actually immediately jumped onto the Golf Digest Top 100 Best Public Courses in the United States. It was
should mention Robert Trent Jones.
Trent Jones Jr. track, which
Junior did
just Robert
renovations.
Trent.
Robert Trent Jones did the original.
Yeah.
Trent Jr. did the renovations 10 years ago.
You got it. And if you're in the Bay Area, there's a lot of Robert Trent Jones Jr., Senior, and Reese Jones tracks throughout the Bay Area. So well versed kind of in their type of facilities that they build. But I think Poppy was a special place. It doesn't resemble any other Robert Trent Jones tracks that you're really going to come across. And I think Nick in a text message went right after they played. We were going back and forth, and something that Nick said where it's like the Pinehurst of the West. It kind of does give you a bit of a Pinehurst vibe. I mean, maybe not with all the pine needles, but with a lot of the waste areas and kind of how it's built, where the fairway kind of just rolls off into these side waste areas. They're not necessarily bunkers, but they're just giant waste areas that kind of collect balls. And the way that the greens are built, and it's very similar to kind of that type of architecture. And so when they built this course, it made all these top 100 lists, and they actually put it into the rotation of the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. And so many of the pros complained that it was so fucking hard that they ended up taking it out of the rotation, and that's when they entered Monterey Pines into the rotation. So it's kind of funny. Like I don't play from the tips when I play Poppy, so I don't get some of those angles maybe the pros were complaining about. But in my mind, it's one of the most pristine tracks, especially that it's fully open to the public. It's not even semi-private, or even a resort, which most of the courses in Monterey are one of the two. And so it's an incredible thing to where you've got your Muni in Pacific Grove, and then you've got the ultimate public, high-end facility, which is Poppy. And I think those two are the best, options you're going to have publicly, in the area. So it's kind of a great, piece of property that has been not around for a really long time. It's definitely a new build, new architecture for what already exists in Monterey. I mean, 90% of the courses in Monterey are at least 60 to 100 years old. So, Poppy is a very new addition to the area, but I think it feels like it's been there for 100 years. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but every time I kind of drive out there, it feels just like it's been there forever. And so when you guys kind of drove up and checked in and all of that, what was your kind of first feel of what you kind of saw when you drove in? Just like Jack talks all the time, I love a peekaboo. You really don't get it at Poppy. Like there really isn't a peekaboo, but when you walk up to the clubhouse, you get that beautiful view right off the balcony of multiple holes and their great putting green and everything. What were your thoughts kind of walking out there and kind of seeing the little trinkets of what you're going to get?
Mm-hmm. You want to go first, Chief? Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I actually, this is not going to come across well, but I actually got reminded of Torrey Pines quite a bit. Just from the clubhouse, the scale of the clubhouse, the look of the clubhouse, how the clubhouse sits in front of several greens and tee areas. It's very similar to the feeling I got when I played Torrey Pines for the first time. That being said, the course is so incredibly different. The only similarities are that they're public golf courses that either have hosted or host currently PGA Tour events. But the clubhouses, I got the very, very similar vibe. The pro shop we went into, I bought a head cover at Poppy, very similar, I think, to the Torrey pro shop. Well appointed, lots of stuff you can get. But just beautiful facilities, excellent public golf facilities, really the two best public golf facilities I've experienced as a short-term golfer. I've been golfing for about 2 years now. Those I actually felt very similar vibes of pulling into the property as I got at Torrey Pines.
Yeah, I think the way that the word I would use is expansive. I think that to your point, it's everything you could want. Really big clubhouse, love a good porch. I mean, there were people kind of sitting on the porch overlooking the 18th green, a really good chipping and putting area, a grass range, which I'm with Nick could certainly be rotated, but plenty of tees. I mean, I think they were using about a quarter of the possible kind of teeing area. So again, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I'm sure they changed them very quickly. And then to your point about the peekaboo, Chris, you don't get it when you're driving in. But one thing about the drive in is you actually pass through the 17-mile gate, which you just tell them you're kind of playing and they let you through. But tell them that, because the first time I played there, the guy basically was like $12, and I just handed my credit card and didn't have to pay that. So I'm a dipshit. But I also knocked my tooth out with the 7-iron. So that has been established here. But everything that you need. And I think the other thing, which Nick will, nod his head vigorously as I say this, really friendly people. They were people who, when Nick wanted a head cover, the guy just like went ahead and applied the member discount despite the fact that Nick wasn't a member. And it's actually funny because we're not, to be clear, we're not going to go a deep dive into Presidio. We want Nick's thoughts, but it's actually a very weird juxtaposition for me because what I've said about Presidio, they are, Presidio is very stoic. Like they're not nice in there. They're not mean, but it's very like, do you live in the city? $120. It's very like, get you in, get you out. They're not going to smile. They're not going to go out of the way to help you. And the guys in the pro shop are just like, oh yeah, you're with a member, whatever. Like we'll knock, $16 off this head cover. Just very cool, very understanding. While Nick was getting his head cover, I grabbed a couple of transfusions. The woman working the bar was super nice. So it just kind of sets the tone for the whole place where, Nick was like trying to find his push cart, which shout out to them for having really good push carts for a reasonable price. I just think like that's so nice where it's like, yes, we have push carts. Yes, they're affordable. Yes, we'll give you the better rate. How can we make it better? At the turn, Nick was hungry and they had sandwiches prepared. Like everything that you want, they have there, but it's not like, oh, you want a sandwich? It's $25. Like, no, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't cheap, but it also wasn't expensive either. So just one of those days you can go there and food, drink. It has everything that you want. And that's a real treat because as we all know, we love our munis, but usually there's like, well, it's got 7 out of 10 things that I want. And I think the big thing is we kind of go down our list of, the usual rate, condition, layout. I mean, Poppy hits every single note in a way that very, very few courses do. Like I mean, again, it was my second time and I told Nick how great it was. And I walked off 18 being like, fuck, why is it taking me 15 months to get back down here? This is stupid. I need to be coming down here more regularly because this place is really, if I'm going to drive an hour and 20, I love Spanish Park. If I'm going to drive an hour and a half to Spanish Park, I should fucking drive 2 hours to Poppy Hills. And it's the same price. It's fucking stupid. Like we need to go play Poppy Hills more.
Speaking just to jump on board that point you made about the hospitality and the food and the drinks and whatever, the people were awesome, as you said. Like I was asking somebody about where do I pick up my push cart, and he was some guy. I don't know. He was a greenskeeper or something. I don't even know what his job was or whatever, but he was incredibly friendly. Not only did he point me in the right direction and tell me where to go, but he was like, hey, like have a great day out there. It's a great course. And I was like, yeah, thank you. I will. And we did, and it was awesome. And then to your point, Ashton, about like drinks and like affordability, like I bought 2 waters and 4, I thought they were seltzers. They were high noons. I guess it's vodka, flavored vodka or something. But so 4 alcohol drinks, 2 waters, it was $35. So very affordable, or very reasonably priced, I should say, drinks and things at the turn. So cannot say enough about the people there and the hospitality and basically all the accoutrement, right, when it comes to golf that aren't the course. It's not the strategic layout. It's not the condition, but they do add to your experience. And Poppy gets it right. Poppy got it right all day long. And I can't emphasize that enough. The starter was awesome. He was telling stories and chatting us up when we were on the first tee, getting ready to go. He was super nice, very enthusiastic.
The pin sheets that actually have, like, they show the green and then they had the red dots where the pins actually were all day, which is so helpful.
Yeah, it's like, not.
Why doesn't every course do that?
Right. It's not. They don't give you, hey, we're putting it. Pins are in zone 1 today or zone 2 or whatever. This is where the hole is, and this is where you need to put the ball.
Yeah.
They do all the little stuff right there, which I think you probably expect at a private course. At a Cypress, right, since that's right around the corner, or any of the other incredible private courses, or even mediocre private courses that But for a public facility to have those sorts of ancillary things go so well, I think is surprising, especially coming from municipal courses that we play all the time, and like super fun and awesome, and it just all creates this experience that makes you want to come back again and again and again. And we haven't even gotten to the golf course yet, and we'll get there. And that's obviously that's the showpiece, but they do all the little things right, and that's a big part of it. I was so in love with the course before we even teed off.
Yeah, and to kind of speak on that too, since we're kind of talking rate, like it's $110 weekday to play this golf course. It is $80 anytime for an NCGA member to play this course. It is also a youth on course membered course, which if anybody doesn't know about youth on course, first off, you should donate and you should help support youth on course because it might be the best thing in golf. What it does is any kid under the age of 18 can join youth on course. I think it's around $60, $65 for a kid to join every year. It gives them access to over 10,000 courses across the entire United States to play golf for $5. Poppy Hills allows kids any time of the week, afternoon, to play for $5 if you're a Youth on Course member. That alone makes me love Poppy Hills because if we want to grow the game, we're talking Youth on Course and what they are doing to get kids involved, give free clinics for kids to learn the game, allowing people that love golf to volunteer their time to help getting kids into the game of golf, and then allowing them to go out and play whenever they want for $5 is just the best thing ever. And for a course like that to be a part of that and for it to be owned by NCGA and to be incredibly public, it's bar none my favorite course for, routing reasons. Like the course itself is amazing. The routing is really good, especially since Junior went out there and did a lot of stuff out there. And that's something we're going to get into right now. You guys haven't been able to play it prior to Robert Trent Jones coming out there and doing his redesign, but 1 through 3 are now 10 through 12. So originally, before he rerouted it, 1 through 3 is now 10 through 12. So he rotated those 3 holes and changed the routing. So the only spite that I will give Poppy Hills is when he did reroute it, it created a bit of an unnatural walking path in between holes. There's a little bit more spread out. It's a little choppy when it comes to that. It used to feel a little bit more natural in the original routing. And now, so 2016, they actually switched the front and back 9. So now you're playing the original back 9 first, and the original front 9 is now the final 9 holes. So they've done a lot of changing and switching of kind of the routings and kind of to make it feel a little bit more of a championship style course that's open to the public. So with the switching of the 9s, I really loved it, but I didn't necessarily like the rerouting of 1 and 3 to 10 and 12. So that's the only little spite that I will have with that. When he did do that rerouting and switched those 3 holes for each side. But other than that, what he has done and what he has added to it. So prior to Junior getting out there and changing some things, they didn't have those waste areas that we were talking about. It was much wider fairways, more green and lush, more tree lined. And he kind of wasted out a lot of the trees, added those waste areas, brought in some pine straw and natural, fescue and things like that back to the course that kind of created, in my mind, a little bit more natural feel. Some people think it's a little unnatural for what Monterey offers, but I think it kind of fits in with what the routing and redesign was with what Junior was kind of bringing in there. But with that, when you guys stepped up, in my mind, so my favorite hole growing up would have been at that time. So now it's hard to kind of grasp your mind around it because they switched both 9s, but then they also rerouted the original 1 and 3 to 10 and 12. So my favorite hole growing up was always number 1, now it's still technically, so it's still number one because they switched the routing. So when he redesigned it, they switched 1 to 10. So it played as 10 for the longest time. And then when they switched the routing, or switched it to play the front or the back 9 first and the front 9 last, now again, my favorite hole is number 1 again. So
you're talking about the dogleg par 4.
Yes, right? Dogleg par 4.
Okay, because when I played it, was this October of 2020? No, yeah, October of 2020. I played it as the par 5. It was flipped. I don't know why they flipped it, but that's how I played it, where the hole you love was actually 10 on that day. I don't know if it was on that day. I don't know if that was, again, like, I mean, not that you're describing it poorly, but my brain is like a pretzel. I'm trying to understand.
Pretzels. I'm in mental pretzels over here. Salted, little mustard on the side.
The first hole of what I'm talking about, and the first hole you normally play now, is you go past the clubhouse, you hang a right, go past the clubhouse, and the tee box is past, like way past the clubhouse on the left-hand side. You kind of go through this cart path, and then it pops out to the left-hand side.
You're talking about 10.
So which side did they have you guys playing on?Id you guys end at the green? Did you guys end at the green? We started on a par 4. Okay, did you end? So when you guys played it,
in the chat, Chris, I put the layout as we played it. I put a link to the layout as we played it. We played number 1. It's that dogleg par 4, bunkers on the right, at the dogleg. It kind of squeezes you a little bit, and it plays away from the clubhouse into the forest. And then you play the front 9, which is like one half of the property. And then the way that we played it, and you alluded to it earlier, that after the rerouting and after the redevelopment by Robert Trent Jones Jr., that there are some interesting transit that you had to do to get to different tees. And I only found it an issue twice. Once was making the turn at the clubhouse. You finished up number 9. The green was right next to the clubhouse. Is actually directly next to the tee at number 1. So it's sort of a traditional layout there on the front 9. But then you had to cross through the entire parking lot and then cross a road to get to the tee at number 10. So that was the longest transit that we had between holes. And then as I'm looking at the map, the only other issue that I had with transit was going from green at 16 to the tee at 17. We had to cross a road and then sort of walk through the woods, and it wasn't that well delineated where the tee at 17 was. So going from 16 to 17 wasn't, if it was a foursome of 4 brand new people to the course, you honestly might struggle to find where the tee is on 17. But
I walked the wrong way because it was me and the guy who didn't speak English. Like, we actually walked the wrong way and had no clue. They were like, "Oh, you're going the wrong way," and I was like, "How would we know that?"
We only knew where to go because I was new in the group, but we had guys who had played the course before. So the issues that you alluded to come at the turn. Looking around for the 10th tee, you have to cross all the way across a big parking lot and under the road. Kind of an issue. And then honestly, going from 16 to 17, it was not well laid out, or not well. The signage wasn't good. But other than that, the routing I thought was totally fine, and it felt mostly natural. Other than those 2 instances.
So I will tell you. So I don't create any more confusion for any listeners or even you guys. 10 is my favorite hole of how you guys played the routing. So when you go through
that makes more sense because no offense to you, but I was
that makes so much more sense.
That's a great hole.
Not interesting.
Like, when I grew up, that was number 1. So that's what I played the majority of the time that I've played Poppy Hills. It's always been that hole is number 1. The par 5 10 is number 1. So now that you guys stated how you guys played the routing in that aspect, where you guys, so that's one part of why I love the routing the other opposite way of how you guys played it, because I love finishing at the green right next to the clubhouse, next to the practice green. That's my favorite way to finish Poppy. So I actually like the reverse routing of what you guys played in your day.
Which, I mean, Yeah, I mean, we can only speak to the routing that we played, and we did finish next to the clubhouse. It wasn't exactly where you were.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
that's where it's also confusing because
They
like
both
one
kinda
green's on one
do.
side, one green's on.
I'm talking about the elevated green that there's a little bit of a dog leg left, elevated green that's next to the actual putting green, the practice putting green. So there's actually like a cart
Chris,
path that separates.
you're talking about so that's 18 for you, which was our 9.
Yes.
No, that was 18 for us too.
Hey, listen.
This is bad content.
No.
Yeah.
We're going to confuse a lot of people if we start going and talking about routings. Fuck all the routing.
So we're going to say
we're
this right
talking
now.
about the 18 holes as they're laid out on February 12th of 2022. That's what we need to talk about. And we needed, the number 1 that we played, that's number 1. The 18 that we played,
the signs say number 1. So when you go to Poppy,
let's just say this might be a spite on Poppy. They do switch it up a lot. So that I'm sorry for the confusion for any listeners, but
moving forward,
my favorite hole is either 10 or 1 on the other side of the parking lot. We're just going to leave it at
one that's a par 5.
Yeah.
Yes. So 10. So we just to be clear, we need to, because this is fucking bananas right now. Chris's favorite hole is number 10. Great hole. Totally get it. Number 1 is not a great hole. Number 10 is a great hole. I get it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
10, 11, 12 are bangers. Like
bangers.
Totally get it.
Yes.
Number one is just a hole to get you out into the course.
So now that we got through that fucking confusion, let's talk about your guys' favorite fucking holes. So, Nick,
Jesus Christ.
Big Dick Nick, what is your favorite hole out at Poppy?
18. It's not even close. And I say that as somebody who appreciated the entire golf course. I loved this golf course, Chris. And we'll get to my overall thoughts eventually. But I thought 18 was a standout for a couple of reasons. I thought the shot value for every single shot was there, right? You have 18 is a double dog leg, right? You have your first shot, it's going to be a dog leg left, and then you bend back to the right. You have to play around a tree to get to the green. It's a par 5. And every shot has value. On your first shot, your drive, you're squeezed with 2 bunkers, one on the left. You have, I'm not sure if it's a waist area or a bunker on the right, but it kind of runs down the entire right side of the fairway. You have to play between those, and then you're left with a really interesting decision. And it all depends on the risk that you take on with your tee shot. You can carry, again, we're talking a dog leg left here on the first shot. You can carry that bunker on the left. It's at the dog leg, or you can choose to try and carry it. And that leaves you a much better angle into the green, and it makes the green approachable if you're on the left side of the fairway. If you're on the right side of the fairway, your second shot, the green is going to be guarded by a tree. And it really, I think, brings into play all sorts of strategy on this hole. Not only is it beautiful, not only is the green massive with a bunch of pinnable positions, but every shot has consequences. So if you take on that hazard, or that bunker on the left with your tee shot on 18, you can get down in 2. If you don't, and you choose to play safer to the right, there's going to be a tree guarding the green that cuts off your angle, and you're going to be forced to lay up left of that tree, because again, it is a double dog leg. So it looks like an S. You're going to be forced to lay up left of the tree and get down in 3. So I think the strategy is there, which is obviously very important when it comes to judging holes, but just the beauty of the hole, finishing in front of the heckle deck right at the bottom of the clubhouse is really cool. And the fact that I think it's the coolest green on the course. I believe it's the largest green on the course. It certainly felt like the largest green on the course when we were playing it. Lots of pinnable areas.
Longest.
Yes, definitely. If it's not the longest, it certainly is one of the longest. But I think it offers a lot of strategic decisions, and it's beautiful. And you're playing into the clubhouse with the Rolex clock and yada, yada, yada. To answer your question succinctly, 18 was my favorite. I loved it.
Yeah, and with the redesign of what Robert Trent Jones Jr. did in adding kind of like a false Rodin, like a mini Rodin before the green, it creates a bit of a challenge coming into that green, because if you do hit it short, it's always going to funnel into that little bit of Rodin, that little bit of a crevice that comes prior to that green, which creates kind of, with all the bunkering that they have, the 2 bunkers on the right-hand side, the singular bunker kind of on the mid-left, it really gives you, a challenge, because the very narrow green that runs long. So depending on where the pin placed that day, you really either have to play it long and come down the hill a little bit towards the Rodin and putt towards the hole, or if it's playing long, you're really just shooting for middle of the green, because if you go long, there's that slope off the back that's just going to take your ball with it. So it's the redesign really amplified what Poppy Hills has offered, because with kind of the maintenance and what they can do with a lot of the courses at Pebble Beach, they've kind of maximized what they can offer out there. Where when they did the redesign with Robert Trent Jones Jr., they widened the fairways, they created more playability, they hardened the fairways and the greens to create more challenge, more rollout, faster stints. It might not necessarily be the longest course in the world. It can definitely stretch out long. You can go all the way up to 7,000, yards on this guy. But with how fast and hard the course plays year round, even in the winter, it creates a challenge for even the best golfer. And I think that is kind of a true sign of a wonderful layout and architectural design, especially a redesign by Junior after his dad designed the original one.
And to sort of piggyback on that point, Chris, I think you're exactly right. Part of the reason why I loved specifically 18, the entire course, but specifically 18, is it's playable for higher handicappers and lower handicappers. It's hard to miss the fairway on 18. There's a lot of fairway to hit with your tee shot. But if you don't hit it in the right spot, you're not going to get home in 2. And that's, I think, what I like to see as a higher handicapper myself. I love to see that in architecture, where better players like Ashton can take on that bunker on the left and try and get home in 2. I can't reach it in 2. I'm certainly not capable of that. But by playing safer, and on this hole, it's playing to the right on your tee shot, you're limiting your options with your second shot. So it's playable for everybody, and it's still interesting and strategic, and you have to risk reward, all those sort of golf architecture platitudes that everybody talks about all the time. This hole has it in spades. And I think that's emblematic of the golf course in general, in that it is playable for higher handicappers like myself. I might 3-jack 15 times, which I think I did this weekend. But there's a lot of room. And even though you have trees on every side of every fairway, I don't really remember us, Chief, and you can correct me. I don't remember any of us playing out of the trees all day. And it's not like we were striping it for 18 holes. You could hit a bad shot, but you're going to find it, and you're going to have a recovery shot that you can play, and it's going to penalize you, but it's not going to penalize you in a way that you have to, play backwards out of the trees, or you're going to lose your ball in the thick pine straw and woods, which I think it's a great feature of the course. I think that's part of the reason why I loved Poppy so much, is that, I had a mediocre round put together for myself. I didn't really lose many balls, and I, it was very playable for a higher handicapper like myself, and it challenged the best players in our group, like the other 3 guys. So it's spectacular across the board, and I think a pretty unique course, and at least in terms of the courses I've played, for that reason. The architecture is I think really well done. I think Robert Trent Jones Jr. gets a lot of shit for designing old style golf courses, 1980s style golf courses, Tom Fazio style golf courses. But Poppy Hills is not that. It's absolutely not that. We called it the Pinehurst of the Pacific that day for a reason. It really felt like that. If you didn't know that the soil was not red clay like we're used to in the Southeast where we're from, you would think you're playing in the South. I mean, it felt like a Southern golf course on the West Coast of the United States. So a lot of points to make there, but it's eminently playable for all handicaps, and a lot of fun for that reason.
Yeah, and outside of, I would say probably some of the best green complexes in all of Monterey as well, because if you go and play some of the other 80s style courses that were built out in Monterey, which would be Bayonet and Black Horse, which I'm very sad to hear Ashton just broke my fucking heart that Troon, the evil Troon, just purchased Black Horse and Bayonet, which makes me very sad because any Bay Area resident that has played a Troon course that's owned in the Bay Area knows that they just cut the fat and fucking turn all courses into dog shit. Which hashtag will never be sponsored by Troon. We and then if you,
I appreciate letting people know that was big of you. Thank you, Chris.
Yes. We'll never take a Troon sponsor. We'll never take that dirty money.
We'll be Justin Thomas thirst buckets for the rest of them, but not Troon.
Not Troon. Nope. Never Troon. And if you go and play any of the Pebble Beach courses, they're all postage stamp style greens. So in my opinion, it's the most diverse green set that you can play in the Monterey Peninsula. And so that's what kind of draws me in there as well, on top of kind of the friendly layout that allows all different handicaps to enjoy every round that they play out there. Ashton, favorite hole?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit before I get to it, because hearing you guys talk is really has really given me some kind of even more thoughts about the place. So one of the things that I think I most enjoy upon reflection about Poppy is I think that it does dog legs and hole movement just about as well as any course I've ever played. Because if you think about it, one is a pretty severe dog leg to the right, where like if you miss on the right side of the fairway, it's going to go off, right? Number 3 is a dog leg to the left. Number 5, it's not a dog leg, but like it definitely asks you to hit it on a certain side of the fairway. 7 is a pretty severe dog leg, or 8, I'm sorry, is a pretty severe dog leg to the right. The point is this happens a lot, but in a way where it's not like, I feel like a lot of the times when I play traditional kind of like dog legs, I tend to think thick trees on the right, thick trees on the left. And unless you hit it in this like ideal spot, or unless, you're a Bryce or these tour guys who can just fly it over corners that they do at Detroit, it just means that you're hitting a lot of like, well, I need to hit it 230 to the dog leg and hit a 7-iron in. Well, I think Poppy just does it better because to Nick's point, there are trees. But like number 3, for example, Hussey was jarring. Hussey is the king of Mr. 4 right. He's now, this is a separate conversation, Big C, but he's now hitting it 4 left. He's having lessons and he hit it 4 left and he blew it off the planet, but he hit it so far and so well that he thought he lost his ball, which is a tough scene, but it was actually not. It was through the trees. And so I think there's just a lot of great dog leg holes out there. Like one of the ones that really stands out to me is 16. Like there's, it's a kind of the fairway is raised. There's a bunker on the right side. I hit a really, really good drive. Didn't cut off a ton of the corner, but I had 170. And the way it works there is then from where you are, again, it's elevated. It goes down into not a ravine. The fairway just goes down pretty aggressively and then back up. So the green is the same eye level as you, but there's this huge dip and it just kind of gets in your head. And then again, with the way the hole is, the green is in such a way where multi-tier. So that one stands out. I weirdly think that my favorite hole is actually number 11. Very short, par 3. I think on that day it was playing 126. And the reason I like it is I think it's a reason why a lot of people love 7 at Pebble Beach, right? It's like, cool, man. Like on that day, I hit a gap wedge. But when I played there before, I learned the hard way. There's a bunker on the front left where if you hit it in there, I mean, unless you're just a really, 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 really good bunker player, you're going to hit it into the bunker on the other side of the green because it's sloping away from you. There's no rough to catch your ball. Basically, you're just going to like chunk it on the green and it's going to roll in the other bunker. And then you're playing bingo, bango, bongo. And you're going to make a 7 or an 8 on a 125-yard par 3. So then you can obviously miss it right. But then there's this huge green. So there's a lot of pinnable space. My guess is that hole can play anywhere from 120 to 145 because that green is so big. But then also there's a thrilling component of, people might say this is gimmicky, but I love the way that Nick accidentally played the hole. He hit a big pull up on the hill, but he hit it over the bunker. It comes careening off onto the green and he two-putt. So I just like all that where it's like, once you have a little course knowledge in my mind, the only place you cannot hit it on that hole is the front left bunker, right? But then the point is where the flag was, I knew that like if I had kind of a okay, I'm going to say a word that's not appropriate for the podcast. If I had kind of a fluffy shot for me in the front left bunker, so I did have that moment on it. I said to myself, if I'm going to hit this gap wedge, I need to hit this thing solid, right? So that's cool though. It's like, I need to get up here and commit to this shot and not hit it in the front left bunker. So I like that because again, the course, to your point, Chris, it's a big boy golf course. It makes you hit a lot of really kind of like grown man or grown woman shots. But that's one where it's like, cool, get up there and hit a wedge, but it needs to be in the right spot. And that's really, really, I just like that. It's a little bit of a different flavor of the rest of the day.
And kind of your take on how well designed the dog legs are. I think another really good point on the design of the course as well is the thought. One thing that's probably left out of most golf courses is the thought process of placements of tee boxes. And no matter what length you play Poppy at and what tee box you play, you can tell there was some thought put in to having challenge at every single tee box. Because one thing, especially for ladies tees, kids tees, or the up tees, whatever you want to call it, they almost seem like an afterthought in a lot of course design, where it's just like, shit, we got to make the course shorter for ladies and kids and old folk. Let's just throw a fucking tee box up in the middle of the fairway and we'll call it a day. That's not what they do here because they hold so many junior AM tournaments. They hold the NCGA championship there. And there's different levels of people that play in those tournaments and there's different flights. And so they built the course to have the flexibility and still create challenge from any distance that you play at. And I think that's a huge bonus in that because like you were talking about, you could be a scratch golfer or you could be a 25 handicap playing from 5,200 yards or 7,000 yards, and you're still going to have the same strategic challenges no matter the length of what you're playing at.
Yeah, well, and Chris, the other thing too, which they do, which you've said a lot that I love, is they actually have, and again, I know this is a little bit arbitrary, but I think it's an important guidepost, is they tell you, they tell you on the scorecard, they tell you on a little like sign as you're walking up, they tell you what handicap you should do to play different tees. Because, I hit it far enough where like when it was warm, like I can play a 6,800 yard golf course and not get eaten alive, right? But it says on there you should be a 0 to 2 handicap, which I'm not. I'm a 7. So I played up 1, right? And then like Nick was about to tee off and I was like, hey dude, like, the 2 Poppy is for 10 to 24, which is great, right? And there was several times, there was definitely some holes where it was close. But number 2, for example, for me, Dash and Hussey, it said, cool, this is a big ass shot. You're going to hit a 6-iron right off the bat, right? The whole one, you get driver kind of flip wedge. It's like big ass carry. Here's a 6-iron. And Nick's tee was like 35 yards up, right? So it's like, cool. It's still a hard shot, but we're not going to give him a fucking 4-iron in his hand on the second hole.
8.
But that's good.
I had an 8-iron in my hand and I hit one of my better shots of the day to that green. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, but that's helpful, right? Because I think that's what we've talked about too, is let's divorce the idea of like, how far do you hit it? Because also too, for you, Chris, as a fitter, you probably see this all the time. People say, how far do you hit your driver? And they pick like the 1 time out of 10, they catch it, 265. It's like,
Yep.
Well, you're normally hitting at 240. I'm glad you hit at 265, 1 out of 10. But what I love where it's like, hey, if you're a 19 handicap, you should very much be playing these tees and you're going to have more fun, you know? And then, of course, what we realized too, and this is a huge out to the Super, conditions were good, but dude, these greens were spicy. I mean, we putted like, we got exposed. We were all like, I'm like, we all suck at putting. We all suck at putting. So it's not about how far the golf course is. I mean, you know, we all hit me, Hussey, and Dash hit flip wedges in there. And like, we were all working for our pars, you know. I made bogey. I immediately 3-jacked. And yeah, I mean, huge shout out to the Super, but I just like when they give you some steer. It's like, yes, you can play a 600 yard golf course, but it's hard enough that you kind of need to be a 0 or 2 to really have fun from 4 poppy, you know. I love that.
I do think to that putting point, Ashton, that's the hardest putting I've ever done in my life. And I played some, you know, for context, I played some crazy courses. I played Sweetens a bunch. I played some really pristine greens in different areas. Robert Trent Jones Trail in Alabama. I mean, I've played on good courses. I've putted on good courses before, and I'm a 22 handicap. So let's not mistake ourselves for me being a good player. But I do think I'm a much better putter than the average 22 handicapper. I think other areas of my game drag me down, but putting has always been something I've been better at relative to the rest of my game. And I've never 3-jacked so much as I have at Poppy. I mean, I mean, 11 or 12 holes I probably had 3 putts on. I stopped keeping track.
Our speed as a group was awful. I mean, Dash, I'm not trying to drive by shoot him. There was probably 5 or 6 times where Dash had just as far, he'd putt it, would have just as far coming back as he did when he hit it. A lot of like 8-footers and then 8-footers coming back.
And I think
crazy.
Ashton can speak on that. Is probably one reason why I, as a guy that probably thrives in his short game, loves Poppy, because the creativity and the challenge around the greens with your wedges,
yes,
and then putting yourself in the proper placements to give you specific types of putts really, really helps with your score. And if you don't know those things, or if it's your first time playing there and not knowing the strategic play and the certain placements you need around the green to help you with that, really creates a massive challenge, especially for the newcomer that's playing the course for the first time. It'll throw you fucking in a blender. It just like you know, like you just said, you know, if you haven't played it in a long time or it's your first time playing it, you're not going to get those. You're not going to figure those greens out for 4 or 5 times after you've played it. You have to play there 4 or 5 times and regularly, because if you don't go out and play there in 6 or 7 months, the shit's going to feel like it's all brand new again.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It should be mentioned, and I'm not trying to backtrack on my comments about, you know, us being horrendous putters on these greens.
Backtrack.
But it should be noted. I mean, we're doing a course review. It should be noted. Like they had just redone a couple of the greens, or at least resodded some of the greens, and so some of the greens we were putting on, you could still see the seams. You know, I think they're like, you know, like 2 by 3 foot square rectangles of sod. You can still see the seams, and you're putting over the seams of the sod. So the conditions we played on some of the greens weren't ideal, and I think that's worth mentioning, just as a course review thing. But yeah, they were diabolical in some places, and you know, certainly challenging, especially for somebody as terrible at golf as I am. So
it's just, I know this is a bit of a trope, or kind of like a things I've heard other people say, but Poppy is one of those places that it makes me want to play more golf. And it makes me want to get better at golf. Like, to your point, Chris, like a lot of the times, like when I just kind of go play a Saturday round, you know, I go play and it's like I shot a number and I don't really think about the course again. To your point, Chris, it's like, man, to that flag, I need to hit it there. And I need to get good enough that from 56 yards, I can hit it in the right tier, you know, or number a hole. I think it's, upon reflection, my least favorite hole because of the houses. But number 14, like dog leg to the left. You can hit kind of a short club over on the right, and you're going to have a long way in. You can kind of attack with driver, and you're going to have a wedge in your hand. And it's just tough because, I mean, it's these two probably like $15 million houses, which you think sounds cool because Nick thinks they're more expensive. They're really, really nice houses. But it's a green where it's like usually they put the pin right on top of a sucker pin. People just suck it off the front. There's bunkers. But again, it's just a course where it's like I leave and it's like, I can't wait to play golf again. I need to get here again soon. And I want to get better so that I can really, really score here. And that's just cool. You know, I think that a course that makes you want to play more golf is what we're all seeking, right? Like you leave Bandon and you want to go play again. You play Sweetens and you want to go for another loop. There's a lot of courses we play where it's like, yeah, okay, I don't need to play here again anytime soon. Like, yeah, if I make my way out here, fine. And probably makes you want to play more golf.
And I think it makes you want to be a better golfer.
No, totally. Yes.
It does. And just to add a little context to that comment, there aren't houses on this golf course. This is not a subdivision golf course.
No, but
there are two holes. There are two holes where there are, you know, charitably you could call them homes. I think it's 14 and I think it's 16, right?
They're more like compounds than homes.
It's I thought I knew what like expensive houses looked like. I've lived in San Francisco, right? My brother lives in New York. I visited him up there. Like there are expensive properties and expensive looking homes in both of those cities and lots of wealth in those cities, obviously. I said this like 4 or 5 times throughout the round. I thought I knew what a nice house looked like. This was like a total reframing in my mind of what wealth could be. There are like there's like 6 houses. It's not a neighborhood. It's like 6 random houses that are on the golf course. The most expensive properties I think I've ever seen in my life, probably. They're incredible, and I wouldn't say they take away from the golf experience as much as I have on this podcast, especially talked and railed against subdivision golf and having houses on fairways and how I think that detracts from an experience. At Poppy, it's not so much detracting from the experience as it is like, holy shit, there are people that actually live in these types of places, and this is their world that they live in every day. That's a separate conversation about wealth and power and money, et cetera, et cetera. But the houses, from the golfer's perspective, the houses are not really in play, although I tried my hardest to make them in play. They're not in play. They don't affect your round, and that's always nice when you have a course that does have houses on it when they aren't impeding on your play or even on your enjoyment of the round. I am well documented and on record as being someone who hates playing subdivision golf. I hate it. I think it makes me play worse. I think it detracts from my experience by at least 50%. It's just not as fun. I think it's more exhausting. I'm very dramatic about it. And this isn't that, but it is.
Also, usually not walkable when they're subdivision golfs as well. And for two guys as Nick and Ashton are that prefer the walk experience on a golf course, subdivision usually tends to lend towards the cart, aspect of golf.
100%. And these houses aren't doing that. They don't affect your round in any way except to like slap you in the face with the opulent wealth that exists in this Monterey area, which I guess
will make us feel
you should expect.
Will make us feel even more poor, Nick, is 50% of those homes that are at that price or more are most people's second homes in their lives. And those are their vacation weekend homes. Just to make us feel even more poor.
A cabin, you might say.
Yes. A $15 million to $30 million weekend chateau.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I mean, again, it's cool, but then you're on the screen and you're just like, you have these 2 compounds overlooking the green. And I think it's also just really jarring because there aren't many houses here, but just worth noting. So just to make sure we do our checklist, I think I can run down this pretty quickly. Our usual stuff. Condition is immaculate. Value for the area, especially at twilight, is maybe the best value you will ever have, I think. Conditions, great. Greens were great. Minus, I think, Nick, it was 2 and 7 had been redone. And because I think for context, they had softened them. They tried to make them more playable, which is cool. I appreciate that they're listening to feedback, right? So,
which it's also the time of the year where they're going to make improvements, and this is the time when they are going to resod and they're going to, redo things. So you also take that into context where this is the time of year that they're gonna do those things, so that when April through September, October come around, their main time that they're going to be in pristine condition.
Yeah. Layout, go back and listen to us bar full of ourselves for 20 minutes about what the routing is. So no comments there, really.
Maybe don't do that. Maybe skip that part.
Yeah, maybe Jack edit that out. I don't know if it's going to. Amenities, I'll quote Big Chris. I couldn't say anything bad about the amenities.
Shout out Akbar and Seamus for holding down the head cover game at the clubhouse. AKA Nick picked one of those guys
There's
up.
Chris, AKA Justin Thomas, AKA Thirst Bucket right there. Thank you, Akbar.
Wink, wink,
Akbar. Best head cover in my bag these days. So thanks to
I'm
them.
ashamed to display. I'm just trying to invoke the Justin Thomas Thirst Bucket. And then pace, it was weird. Our pace was very disjointed. Like there were times, like on number 2, we were on the green. The group behind us was waiting on us, and the group ahead of us was like out of sight on the next hole. But then we finished number 4 and we had to wait to tee off. So, I mean, the big thing is we teed off at 1:30 and we finished around before 6.
Well, hang on. That is, let's pause on that though for a second. That is the most important point, right? Because if people are trying to play this course, especially as an out-of-towner, I'm trying to take advantage of the twilight rate, right? Because a regular rate's going to fuck me as someone from out of town. We were the very first twilight round offered, right? 1:30, and we were the last group to finish 18 holes. The groups behind us all passed us when we were playing up 18 fairway because they were done for the night. I mean, one group of twilight golfers finished, and we finished in the dark. So that I think that's a good point to highlight. If you get the third twilight rate or the 10th twilight tee time, you're not going to finish, and you shouldn't expect to finish.
One thing I will say, Nick, is they don't change the twilight time further in the year when we do have more daylight. So
disregard everything I just said.
So right now, yes, you're going to struggle.
But it's a good point. It's a good point though, because Presidio changes it all the time as daylight. And I will tell you, one of the things I talked to Dash about is last weekend, Dash and I played Presidio and teed off at 1:40, and we're the last group to finish. And we finished. It doesn't matter. We were saying that what Presidio should do instead of being because it's all 1:30, 2 o'clock, is being working backward and saying, hey, how many groups would we like to finish on a let's make it up. We would 5 groups to finish. People average play here. Let's make the tee time there, because I think that it's kind of dumb. Because I mean, unless you're planning, I booked our Poppy tee time a month in advance, and Presidio, those twilight tee times are the first ones to go. So it is a bit tough, where it's unless you're just paying attention to a laser beam, you're not going to finish. So yeah, I think that, but Nick, I think your point's a good one, because again, I'm using Presidio as another example, but I think Presidio's goal is the first group's going to finish and nobody else. And I personally think that kind of sucks.
But that's why I give kudos to Poppy for keeping it at 1:30 year round, because when you do get into July,
tough in December,
of course, but you get into July, you got 1:30 to 3 o'clock to book tee times where you're going to finish if you're a 2:45 tee time.
Yeah. So that's actually a really good point, Chris. I didn't realize that was not an adjustable time for the twilight rate, and that's actually a really good point then, because if you're trying to play Poppy in December and you book a 1 o'clock tee time, you're paying full freight. There's no fucking way you're finishing. So that's actually a really good point to highlight, that it really depends on the time of year. And if you are trying to play in the winter months, obviously you're not going to finish at twilight if they keep their twilight rate at 1:30.
Well, you just make a morning tee time because like you
have to make a morning tee time is the answer. You cannot make an early afternoon tee time and pay full freight. You're going to spend $120 and get 15 or 14 holes in, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great point, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, so any parting thoughts? Because before we go, this is running a bit long, but what I want to make sure we get to is Nick. We're not going to go into Presidio again, but I want Nick's quick thoughts on Presidio. But anything else about Poppy y'all want to highlight other than we think it's great and everyone should go play it?
I mean, it's great. Everyone should go play it. I have only been golfing 2 years. I've been blessed in those 2 years to play a lot of different courses across the entire country. And I mentioned this in our group text earlier this week. It's the second best course I've ever played. The top two are Sweetens Cove and Poppy Hills. I've played a lot of other places. They don't really hold a candle to those two places. I think the greens have a lot to do with that. Both areas, both golf courses have incredibly interesting greens with lots of different pinnable locations. They run true, they run fast, they run smooth. But Poppy Hills, for me, as a new golfer, somebody who's been playing for 2 years, Poppy Hills is the best, we'll call it a big boy championship golf course that I've played. I was blown away. We paid $80 for our tee time. Unbelievable value for $80. I paid $120 to play Presidio the next day. A nice course.
Tough.
Really enjoyable. I love Presidio. We'll get to that in a moment. But it's not even on the same level as Poppy Hills. I would play Poppy Hills again and again and again and again and again. I would go back there every time I'm up in Northern California. I mean, I cannot be effusive enough in my praise for this place. The golf course, the facilities, the people, the price. It's all fucking fantastic. And I went into this weekend with an open mind, really excited to play these courses. And Poppy Hills just blew any expectations I had out of the water. You can put me in the category of a Poppy Hills stan for the rest of my life, as long as the course plays the way it does right now. Unbelievable course for the price, unbelievable value. Couldn't say anything better. Loved the course.
And to kind of add on top of that,
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother. And to say on top of that, I think, in my opinion, my humble opinion, so every golf association in every state pretty much owns or operates a golf course. In Oregon, we've got the OGA golf course, which is just south of Portland. Washington, you've got Chambers Bay. Southern California, you've got Torrey Pines. Northern California, you've got Poppy Hills.
Point of clarification there, the city of San Diego owns and runs Torrey Pines.
Runs, but it's a SCGA sanctioned course. So like anybody that's a member of SCGA gets a discount, gets to go out. It's not the San Diego resident rate, but it is a SCGA rate that they could go out and play. Let me rephrase that. Linked to a golf association golf course. And I technically don't know. Maybe SCGA does own a course down there, but that is what they claim as their crown jewel of the SCGA would be Torrey Pines. And in my humble opinion, outside of Chambers Bay, it is the best West Coast Golf Association golf course that you can go out and play.
Kick Torrey Pines' ass. I say it as a huge San Diego guy. I live here. I own a house here. I love San Diego. Kicks its ass. I would play Poppy Hills 10 out of 10 times if given the choice. Given 10 rounds to split between Torrey.
He's drinking the fucking Kool-Aid.
I am. Poppy Hills was incredible, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Given 10 rounds to split between the two courses, Poppy Hills and Torrey Pines, 10 of those rounds, all 10.
Eat it, John Rahm.
Are going
Eat
Poppy
it, Tiger.
Hills. It's It's an incredible place, man.
Eat it,
It's
Rocco.
such an incredible place.
Just to piss off the Southern California guys, it's hella better than Torrey Pines.
Look,
Little California joke, Nick. I know you're not born and raised here.
I lived
SoCal
in San
hates the
Francisco
word
for a
hella.
while. I can still get behind the word hella. Don't tell my San Diego friends, but no, it does. It's not even the same fucking stratosphere. It's not.
Not even close. And Chambers Bay is probably one of my favorite routings of all time.
I think Chambers
Poppy's just a more playable.
Yeah.
Well, again, better routing, better design. And we're literally comparing fucking, red apples to green apples here. But it's like it's a bet, but I can walk Poppy and I can play Poppy every day. Where Chambers,
Shocked by you.
You do not go out and walk Chambers daily. Like it's just you don't. It's not an enjoyable walk, but it's a very enjoyable routing.
The verbiage that comes to mind when I think of Poppy is shot value, and there's every single hole has cool shot values. Every shot is interesting. That may be a superlative sort of way to talk about this place, but there's so much strategy involved at Poppy Hills. Every shot is interesting, and that's not the case at other places. And the place I'm going to compare it to is Torrey Pines, public facilities, similar prices. Hosts PGA Tour events, hosts the U.S. Open twice. Poppy Hills hosted PGA Tour events, so I think it's a good corollary. I already compared the clubhouses. The shot value at Poppy Hills, shot by shot, is so much greater than a place like Torrey Pines. Even though Torrey's on the fucking ocean and Poppy's is in, the woods, you can get a glimpse of the ocean through the woods. The shot value is so much greater at a place like Poppy. That's what sets it apart from all the other championship type golf courses that I've played. Poppy really stands apart.
Well, Nick, my nickname for Torrey is Bumpy Pines. So, because they have some of the
pine trees though. No pine trees.
No. But I mean, they're greens.
Just the Torrey type pines, not the traditional like tall pine trees.
Yeah, I'm relating more towards the greens being a little bit bumpy and lumpy out at Torrey compared to the pristine glass like greens of Poppy Hills.
Fair enough.
All right, but we want to get your take on Presidio. We have talked endlessly about Presidio and our love for the course of Presidio. But as a person that played it for the first time, it's one of your first experience of playing San Francisco golf. What was your experience going out to Presidio and playing that for the first time?
So I think there's a few things that I think are relevant to this conversation. The first is the course itself, right? It's a course that I think punches above its weight in terms of being a uni course. The condition was pretty good, especially for a city like San Francisco that it's such a damp city, right? It was in good shape for the weather that San Francisco experiences on a daily basis or a weekly basis, right? And that was great to see. I thought the routing was really interesting. I think, I watched the U.S. Women's Open at Olympic Club, which is just south of Presidio, last year. And I've never played Olympic Club, but watching that on TV, I think I got a very similar vibe at Presidio in that the fairways were all slanted, right? You were always uncomfortable with your approach shots. Your tee shots were fairly straightforward. You had a place, you had a target area to land the ball, and if you missed it, you might be fucked. You might not be, but you might be fucked depending on the hole. But it's really your second shot. It's a second shot golf course for me because of the cant of the fairways. It's always, the ball is either going to be below your feet or above your feet, and pretty severely so on a lot of those holes. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I thought In that respect, it might be called a poor man's Olympic club, which is a compliment, right? And it's beautiful. I've talked about the flora of Northern California, especially the San Francisco Bay Area, as being super unique. Someone like myself, coming from the southeast of the United States originally, we have pine forests. Ashton's very, very familiar with those. We have pine trees, pine forests. That's what we're known for, and it's cool and it's beautiful in its own way. But it's not very diverse in terms of the flora of the Southeast. And I'm no like horticulturist, so like maybe I'm talking out of my ass there, but it's a lot of just like straight tall pine trees. My favorite thing about being in Northern California is the diversity of the flora, all the different tree types, whether it's a sequoia or it's a eucalyptus or it's a pine tree or it's a this or that. I'm certainly no expert in that area, but Presidio seems to show off all of those tree types and just as somebody who enjoys golf for being out in nature as much as the shot value that I have, that's really cool for me. So I appreciated that about Presidio. I appreciated the routing. I thought it was very cool.
And
the
Nick,
different views that you got of the city.
Talking about that flora, that smell, that distinctive smell that you get from the sequoias and the eucalyptus and the cypress. It's like
Cypress.
Yes, there's a particular like smell you get off of it, and you only get it in Northern California. It's the most pleasant and relaxing scent that you can get. It's hard to explain to anybody that might not have ever, experienced it, but you experience it in Monterey all the way up the coast until you get up into the Emerald Triangle in Humboldt and things like that. And it's just a very distinctive, clean, like beautiful smell that just is larger than life. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just a beautiful
smell that's larger in life. We're gonna fucking trademark that.
Nah, Chris, I'm so there. I'm so there with you, right, man. It's a visceral experience.
Yes.
It's fresh. It's just that
fresh. It's lush. It's green. There are all these words we can use in a word cloud to describe the experience of playing at Presidio, and that's why I liked it so much. It was a hard golf course. We played on a day where the rough was really grown up, and you would lose your ball if you lost off the fairway. We spent a lot more time looking for balls in the rough at Presidio than we did at Poppy, right? Was there even a second cut at Poppy? I don't even remember if there was.
It kind of just goes right into the natural fescue out there.
I was going to say,
it kind of does.
We looked for balls more in the rough at Presidio than we did the trees at Poppy, which tells you something.
It absolutely. That's a great way to put it, Chief. And that was sort of my experience at Presidio. The setting, the golf course itself, the green, the lushness. I'm coming from Southern California where we live in a desert, right? We live in a marine desert. So we don't get that sort of damp, green, lush feeling on our golf courses, right? It's dry and the fairways are green and the greens are green, but it's brown everywhere else, and that's a different setting. It's fine. It's all fine in its own way. But I loved that about Presidio. I loved the feeling of being in such an urban environment and then being in such a lush place. That was so cool, and I think worth the experience, no matter how expensive it was. It was, I should mention, it was $120 for me as an out of town player to go play Presidio. Not crazy. And I would gladly pay that once, and I'm glad I did pay that once, but nowhere near the shot value that you get for $80 at Poppy Hills, for instance, which is maybe a bit of an unfair comparison because you're talking about a course that was recently redone and also used to host a PGA Tour event versus a true Muni in the city. It's very hard to put those up against each other and expect them to compete equally because Poppy would blow Presidio out of the water. That said, if you are a resident of San Francisco and you can get the resident rate and it's 5 minutes from your apartment and it's accessible and there's parking, which is a big one in the city, And you can get a decent tee time. It's a great option. It's such a great option for public golf, which is what, as I understand, this podcast is all about, right? When I look at public golf in the major cities that I've lived in and been to and played in, a place like Presidio doesn't exist in Atlanta, not even close. A place like Presidio sort of exists in San Diego, and I'm speaking specifically about Balboa Park, which is the muni that I frequent most often here in San Diego. It is also in the middle of the city. It is only 10 minutes from my house. But the level of the golf course is not at the level of Presidio. And I think that's what's special about it. It's a little overpriced for what it is. But it does offer you that option that's so close to home. We were 10 minutes door to door, maybe less, from Ashton's apartment in Nob Hill to the Presidio golf course across the city. And that in itself is a huge thing, because if you are short on time or you do have family obligations in the afternoon and you want to get in a quick 18, you're able to do that in the city. Go play a really cool golf course with some interesting shots. And it's in, I mean, I was going to say pretty good condition. It's really better than that. It's in very good condition, especially for the amount of golf that this course sees on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis.
Always so full.
No doubt it is. And to that point, Chief, like, pace of play you would think would become an issue. We teed off at 8 o'clock. We were, I think, the fourth group to tee off. We finished in 4 hours and 15 minutes. We had no pressure in front of us, no pressure behind us. And one thing I should mention, and I know, Ashton, this is big. You were talking about this the entire round. There was a marshal that came and talked to us on the fourth hole. Said, "Hey, you guys are 1 minute behind. If you could pick it up, we'd appreciate it." We saw that marshal probably.
He was Chris Paul. He's like running. He's like up at number 12 to telling people when to tee off, driving around to 7.
Point God.
I was like, what? This is incredible. Why isn't every course? And the thing is, kind of Presidio vibes. He wasn't nice, but he wasn't mean. He was just like very direct. Hey, you're 1 minute behind. Can you pick it up?
Did they have the best turn house in the entire Bay Area open when you guys played?
Well, yeah, we didn't go in there, but I got a Bloody Mary that was delicious, and our breakfast burritos were banging. But the starter said that they have the best hot dog of any golf course.
Yeah,
is that true?
The turn house usually has a barbecue going where they
had a charcoal grill outside. They were cooking hot dogs. I didn't eat them because I think hot dogs are
sometimes
garbage.
They do pulled pork.
I thought of you. No. I can't. I don't think hot dogs are garbage. I can't eat them. I get heartburn. But I did think of you, Chris, as I was walking out of the turn house. Went to use the bathroom. Walked out, and they had the grill going. They had true charcoal grill. I'm sure they were fantastic hot dogs. I thought of you. I was never going to eat one, but
the breakfast burrito was a ton of food.
So they used the San Francisco Bread Company for their buns. They used the San Francisco Casing Company for their hot dogs, and so they're like,
it's pretty cool.
Primo hot dogs. I double fist every single time I go there. Like, I'm just.
Then you have to eat 2 hot dogs. That sounds.
It takes me about half a minute to eat one. So then
it's not speed. And let me be clear. It's not the speed that sounds horrible. It's the hot dog that sounds horrible.
Pork missiles
different
all day.
Strokes for different folks. You know what? Maybe this revokes the name Big Dick Nick, because a hot dog is like a dick. Nick doesn't like hot dogs.
It's much larger than a hot dog. We don't have to worry about the hot dog sizing.
Anyways.
No, Presidio was great. And to your point, the burritos were awesome. I had an Irish coffee in the morning. It was also awesome. And I do, Chief, you mentioned, we'll say the brusqueness of the staff there.
They're always that way.
To be fair to the starter, he was awesome, and he was super friendly.
The starter was nice.
Very engaging.
Starters are always good at Presidio. The people that run the clubhouse and the marshal are usually a little on the brash side, but the greeter and the starter at number 1, always friendly. And by the way, a quality divot tool given to every single person that plays Presidio. More courses need to do it.
that's like, man, that's maybe not the biggest takeaway from the weekend. That might be hyperbole, but holy shit, Chris, you're absolutely right. I wanted a little souvenir from the shop, and Ashton told me to wait because I could get a stamped, like true stamped divot tool. It says Presidio Golf Club on it. It's got the bridge on it, and it's something that you would pay $15 for at a normal pro shop, and they just hand it out to you at the starter stand on number 1. Not only is that good for the course, I mean, obviously greens are going to be in better shape if you're handing out more of those things on a daily basis, especially to new golfers. You can explain why it's important that they fix the greens, et cetera, et cetera. But it's, I paid a lot of money to play that course. I paid more money to play that course than I paid Poppy, and I wanted to get something. I didn't have to pay for it. I got the stamped divot tool. It's it's in my bag right now. That was a really cool little nugget. So if you are going to go play Presidio and it is your first time, don't buy a pitch mark, a divot tool in the pro shop. Go to the starter stand. They have a whole box of them sitting there next to the scorecards, next to the pencils. Just grab one. It's actually one of those fringe benefits or whatever that does kind of make a difference. And totally love that. And I think
it also we've as a podcast, we've looked into it for merch, reasons and things like that. To have those made, if you buy a couple thousand of them at a time, they cost 30 cents a piece. So for a golf course not to offer those and not to drop $300-400 to get a couple thousand of them to hand out to people playing, it's bullshit. And if you're going to complain about, people not repairing their marks and you having no starters to kind of remind people of it, and also handing out divot tools that remind people to repair their marks as well, then that's on you as a golf course. So if you can't spend $300 when you make more than that on a foursome, and you have 20-30 foursomes playing in a day, well, shame on you, and shame on a public course that can't do things like that.
And a way to bring all this around, I just processed this. So for Nick as an outsider, if he just went to Poppy Hills by himself, it's $295. For Nick to play Poppy Hills and get his head cover and play Presidio, it's like $295. It's pretty crazy. Pretty good weekend.
But it's something that we talk
pretty
about.
Pretty good head cover too. Let's just point that out. Really nice head cover.
Shout out Seamus.
I actually paid more for the head cover than I did the round at Poppy Hill.
Wait, what does that sound?
Yeah, that's
thirsty.
I like JT, but $85 head cover, $80 round, pretty decent.
We talk about this all the time though. Shop around for a deal. Make sure you look at the website. Check what twilight times are. Shop Golf Now. Shop teeoff.com. golfmoose.com. There is endless discount sites for you to be able to find a good deal and play pristine courses. Because for you to say, well, $295, it's unobtainable, I'm not going to ever be able to play there, that's bullshit. You haven't put in enough time and effort to try to find a good deal. So hunt for them, find out something that works for you, and get out there and play when you can find a good deal.
And on that note, we'll keep this one short. We just did an hour and a half on Poppy Hills. But the point is, y'all, it's that fucking good. Get out there, and if you play, DM us, send us some pictures. You're gonna have a good time. But anything else, boys?
That's it.
You guys have me on. Lots of fun.
Tag MuniciPals Golf in any of your public golf playing, because we would love to see what courses you guys are all playing.
Yeah, but Nick, thank you for coming on. I think you and Hussey are kind of like battling, but I think you're the gold standard when it comes to guests. So we appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. Lots of fun.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Peace.